You are now entering the box. Richard, welcome.
What's up? What's up? Thanks for having me.
Of course, man. I'm glad you wanted to come on. That was awesome. I'm glad you asked. I wasn't even thinking about it when I ran into you and doing the whole comedy thing the other night.
Oh, it was a great time, wasn't it?
That was fun. I mean, some of the people that I don't accept being with me were a little bit rude, but
it was an on-ramp to that kind of a day, and if you don't pace yourself, it happens. It happens to the best of us sometimes.
So
it happened to me one time. I went to a concert up in Chicago one day, and I met with a whole bunch of other fans of this band called Coheed and Cambria.
Nice.
So this girl flew from like the western part of Canada, and like there was a dude from Philadelphia, and I actually got a ride up there from this stranger at the time from St. Louis. We're all friends in this group.
Oh, like Facebook or something?
Yeah, it was crazy. And so we get up there, we meet in this random hotel at like fucking 1 o'clock. I'm sorry, can I curse on here? I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
You're good.
Freaking 1 o'clock.
Cursing friendly.
Freaking
podcast.
sorry if my son's listening right now. You should be in school, so you're grounded if you are listening right now. But we were just like drinking in this hotel. In this random hotel, and I paused at one point and I said, "This is everything my parents and my teachers told me I wasn't supposed to do."
Meet with a bunch of random people, ride with people,
A bunch of strangers on the internet.
That is weird, though, man.
You know,
it happened. I feel like people do that a lot these
days.
Though.
And it's really wild.
Did you do anything to like carry like a knife or something just in case?
No,
guy got weird.
Just totally it was weird. I hadn't even cashed my paycheck at the time. That's how I just see the pants. I had to go to this bank next door, and so now I'm in Chicago with strangers with a bunch of cash.
Perfect situation.
I don't even know this person who I'm riding with, and
That's hilarious.
We're drinking at 1 o'clock. By the time the show started, I remember the band coming out, and then like the footage I like watched of the concert afterwards, like the day afterwards, was really interesting. I apparently was really into the architecture. Like while the band's playing, I'm like, look at these pillars. Wow, it's like we're in Tunisia right now. And I'm like, who's narrating this? Yeah. That's what that lady was like. That was me in 2015. It was reincarnated as that lady.
That's hilarious.
Who went on that wine-a-thon. That was something.
So how was it though? Overall went good?
The show was great.
I mean,
the concert?
Hanging out with the people.
Oh, it was. They looked like they had a really, really good time.
Yeah.
I saw the pictures afterwards. And they had like gone to like another hotel party, and like the person who drove up with me, bless her heart, she's texting me, "Hey, where are you right now?" Because I just completely blacked out.
Oh,
and
nice.
A buddy of mine from high school, thank goodness, he lived up there and
connected with him.
Yeah, so I crashed at his place, and I just remember waking up the next morning, and I'm covered up with a blanket, and I'm looking around, and it looks like we're in like a house in Chatham or something. I'm like,
am I back home?
I'm like, where am I right now? Like, I'm in a 2-story house, not a peep. Like, I don't know where I am. I don't have my phone on me.
Those are freaky too. Blackout, wake up like that.
Right, and I'm like, oh no, like, oh goodness, did I Robert Downey Jr. this? I just broke into somebody's house and I'm just like passed out.
I remember when I was younger, man, we were out and I blacked out one night and just woke up in someone's basement I'd never been in before. It was just a basement, and I was like freaked out.
Isn't that crazy? People
I was like, am I captured? I was like, what the hell's going on? I was like, where the my man? I started freaking out, man.
It's amazing, when just to think about it, how people take care of each other sometimes. Totally random person that I met randomly. Hey, you need a blanket? You can crash on my couch in the basement.
That's
Thankfully,
crazy.
I was cool. I left that establishment. My friend was going to drop me off at the train station. He said, "Don't forget your long coat." And I said, "I don't have a long coat." And what are you talking about? He said, "That's the coat you got at the check, like the coat check. They gave you this coat." And I'm like,
That
oh,
is not my
dude,
coat.
oh no, that's not my coat. It was this really
That's
nice
funny.
pea coat I had for like the last 8 years. My mom hates when I tell this story, and now it's recorded for eternity.
So I was in Chicago at an Alkaline Trio concert in high school, and we were not, obviously at high school, we're not 21 or anything yet. I think we were 18 maybe. It was like maybe senior year. Mm-hmm. And we went up there, Alkaline Trio concert, and I had never been to a concert that like gets a little crazy in the down on the floor, you know what I mean? So there was like a mosh pit, and I wasn't really partaking in it, but I was on the floor, and it just got a little crazy. And that was when I learned you don't wear flip flops to a concert.
Oh no!
So lost a flip flop. And we're in Chicago, so obviously there's a lot of walking going on. So I hang around till everybody clears out, and long and behold, there's a flip flop, not mine though. And so I take this flip flop, and I'm wearing two different flip flops. The one I find is too small for me, and we're walking down the streets of Chicago, and I'm like, somebody found my flip flop, and we've just swapped. Yeah. Only they came out on the positive side because even though it's too big, at least their heel's not dragging.
Right. They're confused too. They're just stumbling off right now. You guys are living parallel lives at the time.
There you go. Flip flop swap.
Wow. Alkaline Trio. Do you remember what venue that was?
Was it Aragon?
Okay.
Aragon Ballroom?
Yeah, probably.
I think so.
I just saw them for the first time last August.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not the. Who's different in it? Somebody's different in it. I can't remember.
Yeah.
One of them's not.
Either.
I think one of them's different from the original band, but. And then I'm pretty sure Skiba plays with Blink 182. Is that a thing? Was that it? Okay.
Is he? Oh, he was. He was until maybe like a week or two ago.
Okay.
And Tom DeLonge is back for now.
Gotcha.
And so.
Because we went and saw Blink, I think right after he started playing with them.
Yeah.
That was years ago. It was awesome, though.
Yeah.
Freaking Travis Barker. It was at the amphitheater down in St. Louis. And for his solo, all of a sudden they start lifting him up into the air, and the whole thing starts rotating. The whole drum set. He's
That's
doing
crazy.
his solo. Yeah, it was bizarre.
That's like Tommy Lee.
Yeah.
That's wild.
He's good, man. He's
you
a good
Motley
drummer.
Crue guy?
I mean, I'm not like a Motley Crue guy, but I like, you know what I mean?
I'm the same.
Like
I'm the same.
Rock, good music. Can't
When
beat some
when
good
it's
rock
on,
and roll,
like if I'm
man.
at the grocery store, something that comes on, like I might like be like, oh wow. I find myself saying things like, oh wow, he really is going wild on that instrument. I'm like, well, gee, do you think he did?
Did you see the special that they did, or
I haven't seen that
documentary
movie
thing they made, or whatever?
No,
It's pretty good.
I was a big behind the music guy when I was
I remember
that. Like middle school. I would watch that and I'd be like, those rock concerts look great.
Yeah. the special, I mean, obviously I don't know how accurate it is or whatever, but
I hear it's pretty accurate.
Man, those guys went hard.
Yeah. I've got a buddy of mine. He's a comedian from out west in LA, and he used to run with, and he still does run with a lot of like those rockers and stuff, and like to hear the stories sometimes it's just like, what, like you guys are still alive?
How do you make it? Well, even just little things, like you talk about random stories that we were just talking about. Like, I can't believe we made it out of that. It's a unique thing, so sometimes when I think about how I started doing comedy, and I think I was 33 when I first kind of stumbled on stage, and what was it that made you decide to do it? Like, what was? Did you just really enjoy it, or did you find yourself kind of being funny? Someone's like, "Oh, you should check out."
Honestly, I think I've just always kind of been like like an entertainer of some sort, or like a little bit of attention, like a little more than average. And honestly, I think the first time that I did something in front of a group, I got in trouble in the 6th grade. It was either 5th or 6th grade. I was talking in class, and the teacher was like, why don't you go tell? She had had enough, Why don't you tell the whole class?
Yeah, one of those stand up and tell everybody what you're saying.
And I'm like, no, I don't think so. She said, you can tell the whole class or you can go down and tell the principal. And I was like, well, here we go.
Nice.
The whole class is about to hear the story about how I watched this movie on the USA Network called Rattled, which was about a town that was overtaken by rattlesnakes. And it's like jarring to think about. I try not to think about all the details of it, but like that's why I was so excited.
I've never even heard of that one.
Oh gosh, it was crazy. Like snakes coming out of the toilet, and like they were just pouring in from everywhere.
Yeah, one of those cheesy.
Yeah, yeah. They're like arachnophobia, snakeophobia, candophobia. What if you were in a candy factory and you're
Shark
afraid?
tornado.
Yeah. So like the class was like eating it up, and it was kind of like a '90s movie where like the teacher, she's trying not to smirk, and like she's like kind of smiling, and I remember she said, "Richard, okay, wrap it up."
Right.
And I walked over to.
But don't tell me how the movie ends.
Yeah. I walked over to this box of Kleenex, and I took out a Kleenex, and I started twirling it around my finger, and she's like, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Oh, you said wrap it up," and the whole class was like, "Ah."
Oh my god.
So it was like the thing. But then like by the time I got out of like, you're into like senior year of high school, and it's like I'm in marching band, I think was like the serious thing I was doing. Like, what am I doing with my life? I'm like barely making it through high school, I guess.
See what we got.
I guess I'm gonna get.
Where'd you go to high school at?
Jacksonville High School.
Okay.
What up, Jacksonville Crimsons? No real mascot. This color is fine. I grew up in Quincy, so I wanted to be a Quincy Blue Devil.
They didn't have a mascot?
I guess it used to be the Jacksonville Jackals, the Jacksonville Crimson Jackals, and then they dropped the Jackals, and it was just the Crimsons. So, like, going from the Quincy Blue Devils, that was my destiny, I thought, to the Jacksonville Crimsons. First off, where is this town? I've never even heard of this place, And my principal at the time, she's giving me a tour of the place, and she said, "Oh, you're from Quincy, our rival school." And I looked at her. I said, "I had never heard of this town.
I didn't know. That's new to me."
Until my dad got appointed this church, and okay, so my dad's preaching about heaven, but I feel like I'm in hell.
Nice.
There's no mall in this place. There's nothing. What do you guys do? We hang out. You want a horseshoe? Yeah, I remember we had horseshoes the first day.
What's the population of Quincy?
It's only like 40,000.
Is it?
So it's not.
I thought it was bigger than that.
It's not too much bigger than what Jacksonville is. I think if you take Jacksonville and South Jacksonville, it's about 30,000.
Okay.
Quincy's 40,000, but it's kind of spread out, so you'll never see all those people there. But it's like a lot of industry.
I haven't been to Quincy, but a couple times. But
yeah, it's would you just like passing through, or just like for an event, a specific thing?
I don't honestly remember.
Yeah.
I remember for some reason, did we have a gig there or something? I feel like I was there filming something one time, and then I don't know. I went to school in Western, so maybe I went.
Oh,
went
yeah,
there. Is it close to Macomb?
Yeah, a lot of people from
something for that. I don't remember.
Probably, yeah. You probably met a lot of people from Quincy going to Western.
We used to have to drive. We wouldn't go all the way to Quincy, but on Sundays, was it Sundays? Yeah, Sundays you couldn't buy beer or alcohol. So we would either have to stock up the night before or just forget. We'd have to drive like out of the county to go get alcohol.
That's in Macomb?
Yeah.
Man, they're
Isn't that weird?
They're like,
college town?
They're like, you guys got to take one day off.
This is your recovered day.
You have to take one day off, all right? There were 400 of you in the middle of the street last night. Okay,
you all just woke up in someone's basement.
Yeah. Oh my gosh! So a friend of mine went. I had. You have a bunch of people that from here that go to Macomb. A third of them go to Macomb. The other third of them go to ISU.
Right.
And then
Champaign. Bloomington.
Yeah, and then right. And I remember I had my Nokia cell phone.
Oh yeah.
Back when I was in high school, or like I just graduated high school, and we were going to visit a friend of mine that was going to Western.
Yeah.
Going to go party that night.
Good old Macomb.
And I said, I'm going to leave my phone at home so I don't get drunk and lose it. Super smart, right?
Yeah.
because we all got
Sounds like a good
separated.
idea, right?
Yeah, it was insane. We get separated, and I remember waking up the next day and like, I'm like, I don't know how are we gonna find this guy? Like, because the guy that we're with, he doesn't know anybody here but me.
Yeah.
He doesn't know what building we're in.
Jesus.
I told him to leave his phone at my house back in Jacksonville, and we're just like, here we go, and we start to walk out of this dorm. And before we even walked around the corner, here he comes stumbling around the corner. We're like, how did you find us? He was like, something just told me to come into this building. I think about that all the time, how I had the bright idea to just leave.
Over there.
Yeah.
I don't know now, but there was only like 2, maybe 3 dorm buildings.
Mm-hmm. I know one was demolished like a couple of years ago.
They blew, I think it was 2 of them. It was the 2 main ones. They freaking blew those things up. It's crazy video.
Yeah,
I don't know how the hell
wild.
they control demolish stuff.
Yeah, it was wild.
Always blows my mind.
You know, I just remember being on that campus too, and just kind of being like, you know, even if I did go to school for music here, like that was my plan when I was in junior high. I was like, I think that was the thing, and I was like, what am I gonna do? Like, am I gonna be a music teacher? I don't like kids. I don't like kids. I'm still one.
Yeah,
I don't really like kids. I wasn't smart enough to realize until after, like, I graduated. Like, okay, because they tell you in the 5th grade, hey, if you play in symphonic bands, hey, you know that theme from Looney Tunes, that could be you when you grow up.
That track, man.
And I'm like, oh, cool. You're right. That could be. And then, like, once I got out of high school, I'm like, well, wait a second. What do you think they need, like 20,000 dudes that play the saxophone right now? Like, where? Why? How? You can't sustain that. The Looney Tunes theme was recorded once in 1936, and they've just been using it ever since.
Yeah,
like, nobody
get that.
There's no like in demand.
Get that recurring revenue off.
Yeah,
you lease it to them.
Yeah, like a lot of the comedians that like I'm into, like Mark Maron, Dean Delray is a great comedian / podcaster that I know, and like he's had a lot of guests on over the years where it's like, I can't believe this game that I'm learning for free. Like, it took these guys decades to have this experience, but they didn't have the internet back then. Mm-hmm. So that's a big thing that they talk about now, is just like, we would work this circuit for 3 or 4 years, and this promoter would say, oh, well, you're making $100 to be the headliner now, but then you'll eventually work your way up. And, you know, that dude would work that circuit for 6 years before he realizes on the 7th year, oh, it's always going to be the same $100.
Right.
And how many people are you going to meet with no internet? Like, so it's just like everybody's just doing this. The promoters just kind of seem to be raking it in, and then, you know, the big clubs kind of started flopping, and then you get like these strange little hole in the wall places. Like, hats off to Astra for running that first show. Cool. That was the first show that they've had, first ticketed event.
Yeah, that's cool.
A great comedy show.
The layout of obviously the place isn't ideal.
Yeah.
So I was trying to think of how that could be set up a little different to function a little better. Cause like, you know, we're all sitting in a row. So I keep moving like this. And then my friend behind me, I see her out of the corner of my eye trying to opposite move.
Yeah.
And I'm like, all right, I'm just going to stay over here. You stay over here.
It is it's a weird hit or miss type of.
Well, it's just it's a long, you know what I mean? All those buildings down there are like long instead of like. Yeah, so I don't know what you could do there to, like, I was trying to think about that. You know, my brain's always thinking of it from a business perspective. Of like, how could you set this up? But yeah, that's awesome, man, that they did that, had that. That was fun. Yeah,
you know, and that's something that we, you know, I feel like once you start doing stuff like that, you know, you're always kind of looking at where could we do somewhere else. You know, especially if you live in a town that doesn't have like a home club or something like that.
I thought about that. I was telling him, man, I was like, man, I don't know why. I was like, I just think it'd be fun to have a little comedy club.
Yeah.
I love comedy.
Yeah.
I'm not a comedian. I mean, I think it'd be fun to try. Like,
sure.
I don't know if I could ever get myself to do it, but it'd be like, it's just fun.
Sometimes it's just as simple as I know for me, I used to live around the corner from Donnie B's when it was the Doghouse, or like Donnie B's Comedy Club or the Funny Bone, and it was the Doghouse and all those other things right around the corner.
And that's all we had really. Was that for the longest time.
Mm-hmm.
I know he set up in the. We went to a couple shows in the KC Hall. Over the wintertime, and they're pretty good, but like it just doesn't feel like a comedy club. You know what I mean?
Sure. You got to have the certain something, and once you find it, you gotta like nurture that. Like there's a place in Quincy. Shout out to One over in Quincy. It used to be like a $1 movie theater, and then they took that place because once it closed, they just took the screen out and it's got the stage. I guess it used to before the movies. I think it was like an actual performance center, I guess, but it's got like a balcony. The floor is really nice, and like it feels like a club. And so like I've worked with the promoter down there,
like booths.
It's amazing. And like the promoter's like, well, okay, so what if we did another comedy show at this place? I'm like, oh no, that's the place,
right?
Because if people would keep coming back to this one, you know, we set up a show there one time. And then maybe like a week or two later, Kevin Farley called because they had seen that the show that I set up was going to be at that place. Cool. And he was like, "Oh, that must be the place." And like since then, like Donnie Baker's been there, and like, nice. Is it Trailer Tammy or something like that? I don't know what the internet personality is, but she's like really boisterous and funny. You know, the kind of content that is like big when people are scrolling.
Right.
Like every comedian.
Scroll stopper.
Oh, yeah. Every comedian was saying pre-COVID, oh, TikTok, I'd never get on TikTok. Reels, that's so stupid. And then it's just like, you got to figure it out. You got to figure out what the thing is.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, these people are going to lap you.
How often do you go out and try to do shows? Just whenever you can find something? Or is it?
I try to do... mics here in Springfield when I can. Peoria, they've got a really nice mic up at the jukebox. And so you are exposed to other comedians that way. St. Louis has got a real poppin' scene. And so if you can mix in with those people, then they'll kind of... It's this weird formula. So like I was talking about One earlier in this podcast. So I knew... if I got great pictures of One, once I posted these pictures, what do you think's going to happen? These other comedians, I mean, there were 3 or 4 while the post, I mean, the ink hadn't even dried. And they're like, hey, we'd like to be on some shows up there. Cool. And we'd like for you to be on some shows down here. And it's like, perfect. And I tried to think of it as like in the terms of like pro wrestling in like in the 80s. Like they had a whole bunch of like, okay, so they had WCW own these territories. WWF at the time owned these.
I was just listening to Ric Flair on Joe Rogan, and they were talking about that.
Oh, really?
Like how there was different territories, and then eventually they just gobbled them all up.
Exactly. I remember my cousin used to get these wrestling magazines, and he'd be like, oh my gosh, there's this guy named Sting. It was before WCW was like nationally televised. He's like, there's this guy named Sting. He's got face paint like the Ultimate Warrior. I said, what?
Yeah.
What? So by the time I saw Sting, it was like, oh my goodness. So big it's deal. Like you're building all this stuff. So whenever I see pics of, headshots of a comedian, or I've seen that he's worked with this person and this person, they've been here doing this.
Yeah. You think we would get you think you would, like, if there was a permanent spot in town, do you think that there would be the talent? One, that obviously there's 2 things. You got to have the talent of the people coming to do the comedy, and then 2, the support from the community to come out and watch it. You think that those 2 things would align, like, for a regular spot in Springfield?
I think so. What I think is interesting is, the show at Astra. we're kind of looking over the ticket sales list, and which was sold out, by the way. It's a great lineup. Yeah. And Ad Astra does a great job of promoting all that stuff. Larry Smith is a wizard when it comes to knowing what to post, how to post it, when to post it, and that kind of stuff like that. But like, we're looking at the list and we didn't recognize a lot of like names. And so we know that like our friends and family members know that we do this thing. And like, sometimes I feel like if they see it see it really, really often, it'll maybe saturate so much that they'll feel like they're already there. Mm-hmm. Like, I need to take you from being a shopper into a buyer. So if you're just some random Joe Schmo and you see this ad, you're thinking, oh, heck yes. And so, like, we're just finding a lot of times it's external. Yeah. Facebook, fishing my own pond doesn't work. Like, it doesn't get me the results that I feel like I need or that I would like to get. And what I see from a lot of other comics, myself included, sometimes just like, what's the point of fishing that? Or, if I do a show in Quincy, I'm spending a couple bucks on a Facebook ad, number one, and then I'm finding their Facebook groups and I'm posting the event. I'm posting a poster that I designed into this, or like a video that I created into this thing. So then people are like, whoa, yeah, wow. So it's just a matter of doing it. I've also found that like, if you approach somebody and like they've got too many irons in the fire, they'll just nurture the irons that they already have in the fire. So like if I've got a restaurant and I've got a bar, and I want to maybe add comedy, like let's say we're having a conversation on a Tuesday. If I don't get you to agree to that thing right here, right now,
yeah, let's touch back base on it.
By the time Thursday comes, you're going to get cold feet because you're thinking, well, crap, I haven't finished the stuff that I have already on my plate. Yeah. So that's why it's sometimes it's like you find that maybe the system's antiquated, or you find that somebody is just not biting on whatever this new thing is. Because it doesn't make sense to me we've got 15 or 20 great comics in Springfield.
Yeah, I was going to ask you how many you think are in Springfield. So the girl, what was her name?
Rebecca Jaffe.
Yeah. She said she goes to UIS. Is that what she
goes
said?
to Milliken.
Oh, Milliken. Yeah. Okay. And then the other gentleman, what was his name?
Larry Smith.
Larry. Uh-huh. He is he in town? Is he in Springfield?
Yeah, he's from Springfield. Yeah, he's been doing it for many, many years. And like Larry, I don't know. Sometimes I don't know how he can be everywhere that he is.
Travels around a lot doing it.
Yeah, because like I'll see him here in town and he'll be running this, running that, and then he'll be like, "Oh, I'm in Nebraska and then I'm in Minnesota," and then I'll run into him Sunday or Monday somewhere, and it's like you got to get good at just keep throwing stuff out there. And like right now, when it comes to like what kind of content am I putting out there, I need to just like right now I'm just kind of like doing in my head, I think like I need to find whatever the thing is, hone in on that, and then release that. You don't want to be like, hey, I made this video Tuesday, November 16th, right, 2019, and then I made another one in February of 2021. People will be like, what's going on with this? Right. So, I mean, I feel like there are two different, it's just a matter of what's this thing. Now, the big thing that we always hear is, okay, so who can you bring here? And then if you don't say Cat Williams, Kevin Hart, Larry the Cable Guy, you'll see the light in a business owner's eyes like just kind of fade away because they're like, well, I've never heard of any of these people. Right. And it's like, I think that's the last thing. Like, okay, so you're not going to get Larry the Cable Guy to come here for $1,500.
Do you have,
do you know that?
Do you have millions of dollars?
How much money you got?
I was surprised Kevin Hart came a while back.
I was.
Did you go to that?
I didn't. I slept on those tickets, and I don't know why I didn't think that it wouldn't sell out.
Might as well.
But that's the thing is, like, when I saw that, I got excited.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, great. They saw that sold out. They've got to have another one, right? And then
Bert came recently.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, it's cool to see them coming. It's interesting that they like. I'm sure. I have to imagine they just analyze the data of their followers, of the reach, with their social media, and just see like, oh, I have a good enough following in the 217 area. Let's go to Springfield.
Sure. I also think that it's sometimes just a matter of just like reaching out, like calling the right person at the right time.
Yeah.
I don't know Bill Burr personally, but a good friend of mine does. Like, he's like best friends with Bill Burr.
Yeah.
And so like it's enticing. Like there have been places that I've talked to that put shows on who have brought in bigger name comedians that are like, yeah, we're interested. They actually told me we're interested in that. And then when Bill Burr got booked for Peoria, I asked, hey, did they ever reach out to Burr? And he was like, no, he never heard anything. So it's like, well, guys.
It'd be interesting, too, if you had like a small, like little comedy club, if they like came to town to do like a big show at the convention center, if they'd just pop in maybe.
That's funny that you should say that, because I think it was in maybe April of 2020. I'll have to go back and find the episode of the Monday Morning Podcast with Bill Burr, but he was just saying, oh, I'd just love to like get on a plane right now and fly to, and he said verbatim, I don't know, like the Funny Bone in Springfield, Illinois, and just like do a show right now. And I'm like, so like I reached out to like almost every club owner that I know. I'm like, hey, some places are doing shows right now and some aren't, some of them are doing social distancing shows, and like, so you're reaching out to these guys and they're just kind of like, well, I don't know. And I'm like, no, he just said that. Like, I sold cars for 6 years. And like once I started, this is weird. Once I started doing comedy, I started telling my managers I'm not working beyond 5:30 on Wednesdays. And when my manager asked one day, would you rather be telling jokes on a Wednesday night, or would you rather be possibly selling a car? I said, oh, telling jokes 100%. That's when I knew that, like, all right, there's some weird shift inside of me right now to where who in their right mind would say something like this? Like, when I stopped selling.
Just what you enjoy,
Yeah.
And that's whenever somebody can figure out how to make a living doing what they enjoy, that's the best thing.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And that's what I like too with us, with the marketing stuff we do for some of these small businesses. Like, it's nice, like the feeling of like, okay, this person has this small business, and man, we've looked at over the last 2 years, we've tripled or quadrupled them working for themselves, and these people went out to start their own business and do this, and we've helped them get to this point, and that's pretty cool. You know what I mean?
It's storytelling. I feel like comedy and telling visually a story for a business, it's similar, because you know how to tell their story.
Visually, it's way easier. I mean, structuring it for like a story and comedy, like that takes some.
Oh my goodness!
God honing, man.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Because you got delivering it in the right way, the right timing.
Sure. Yeah.
Like the right punchlines to make. Because there's like, even in my everyday life, I'm like, man, I'd make a funny like little comedy thing. You know what I mean? But I'm like, God, how would you just thinking of how would you deliver that so people get the same laughter out of it that you're getting in the moment of like an awkward situation or whatever it is. It's such a skill, man. It takes so much practice.
It does. And I started off, I think I had a notepad or a memo on an old phone. And so like I was just writing a whole bunch of stuff, and I had pages worth of stuff going back 5 years. And the day that I was going to my very first, I had never been to, actually I take that back. I've been to one comedy show because I won tickets to Donnie B's. I saw a guy named Mike Armstrong. He's a former cop. He's a funny guy. But like part of his jokes like have to do with like being a former cop, and
Right.
and just to watch him work, and then to watch him ad lib, that was the thing that was like strange to me. I didn't understand the concept of that. He started making fun of this dude who was sitting on stage, for like, because the guy wasn't like laughing. He was like very stoic looking,
Right.
and like, he would just like look at the guy and he'd just start laughing. And at one point he said, "I'm sorry." He said, "This guy just reminds me of like the dude from Rocky IV, the villain." He was like, "This guy, he would work on. He was like one of the doctors on Drago's team. Like that's what he looks like." He's like, "That's why he's not laughing. He's very serious." He's I was just picturing him like marching around.
That's hilarious.
And like he was like, "Sorry about that. I'm sorry. I won't pick on you again." And he goes on, and he looks at the guy and he starts laughing again. And he said, "I want everybody to look at this guy's face." He said, "If I disappear tonight, it's this guy's fault."
Yeah.
And I remember looking over at the guy, and the guy like did not crack a smile at all.
Right.
And like to me,
It's funny. You wonder what those people are even doing there.
what are you doing there? First off,
Like,
and it
yeah.
was funny to me that he was getting joy out of his own inner thought. And it was funny to me that several years later that was the thing that sticks out to me, So, I was like going back to what I said, like I told my dad I was on my way to this open mic and to see my friend perform. I had a friend who performed comedy for 3 years at this point. And I had never gone to see him. And I felt terrible.
Yeah.
And I wasn't doing anything on this Wednesday night. And so I was talking to my dad on the way in, and he said, "Hey, have a good time up there. I hope you do well." And I'm like, "Okay, Dad, I will." And so I'm like, I don't want to let my dad down. And so like I scrambled together these notes, and like it wasn't until several years later that I thought to myself, "Hey, wait a second. Why are you trying to impress your dad? He wasn't even paying attention to you
Right.
for the 10 minutes that you're driving there. Tell him that you're going to see your friend perform."
Yeah. Thought
But-
you were.
I intended to just do it once and have that be it, and I pulled an audible on the way up to the stage. They said my name. Now introducing for his first time to the stage, Richard Bailey, in this dark club. And I'm walking by, and I could see the shadow of this guy. And he's like, if he had like cartoon eyebrows, they would have like popped off his head. He was like, "Whoa, what?" And I said, "Yes, I'm Richard Bailey, and that guy I bet lost $100. I bet he bet $100 that I was going to be white." And like the dude was just like dying laughing.
That's awesome.
He's just dying laughing
Yeah.
at this, and so like I'm riffing off of this for like the next minute and a half,
Yeah.
2 minutes, and then I was like, "Oh yeah, the notes on my phone." And so then before I know it, it's over.
Right.
And
Probably didn't hardly even got into it.
hardly got to anything that was on my
Do you
notepad.
feel like though that like that's some of the best
Yes.
when you can just when there's an opportunity to run with it? Like
Absolutely,
that?
because I don't even remember what was on the other sheet.
Mm-hmm.
But I know that I used that 2 minute opener for the next 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
I ran that joke until I ran into a guy at the jukebox, another black comedian named, you can't make this up, Billy Smith.
Yeah.
And he had the same type of opener. I was like, "Oh, dude, he wins."
Yeah.
That's yeah. That's way wider than my name, bro.
Yeah.
But
That's hilarious.
just
I'll
to,
pass that off. I'll
Yeah.
let that one go about Billy.
and like what's interesting is like in general conversation, you're telling that story to somebody, they're like, I don't know how to react to this. They're like in their brain they're calculating, is this supposed to be funny?
Yeah.
Is this a complaint? Is he filing a formal complaint to me? Like, what am I supposed to do with this? And
That's awesome.
you take that kind of thing and you take it to the stage, and you find over and over again that it works, and like we're all connecting. This is okay. So this is a great icebreaker.
Yeah.
Now we're just chilling. All right. Now we're hanging out, and for the next whatever it is. So I've got that 2 minute opener, and then I would try out something new every once in a while. I put something in there, and
There
like
it goes. Yeah.
yeah, I've got this notebook here. I've got a ton of different notes here, and like it's just like a whole bunch of scribbles. I don't know if you guys can see this or if what camera's on, if it is on or not. It's a whole bunch of scribbles, and every once in a while, something might jump out, and I'll try it.
Yeah.
And maybe it's just like a shower thought, and if it works, it works.
Yeah.
If it doesn't work,
that's great.
Who cares? It's a random passing thought. You know, I got the microphone for the next 7 minutes. You guys can't go anywhere. You can't talk over me because it's frowned upon.
It's frowned upon.
So
not that you can't, but it's definitely frowned upon.
You know, and it wasn't until different comedians have different ways of preparing for shows. Like I saw Mark Maron. He was posting about a show he was getting ready for. It was a pile of note cards of different sizes with different color ink.
Things he had written on them.
A whole bunch of different stuff. And like I've seen comedians that have like the big yellow legal pads that are folded up that, you know, they put on the stool next to them. Like headlining comedians, I'm like, wait, you can do that?
Right.
I've seen other comedians do it like there was a guy that did a special, Ian Edwards. He had a comedy special where he ran it like a TED Talk. And he had a word in the background. And like some people can use word prompts.
Yeah.
But like,
props, music.
Yeah.
It's interesting that
and it's
people
put their
spin on it, you know.
It's so wild.
What's your favorite comedian of all time?
Oh.
If you had to put it on one.
I don't know. That's a good one. I like a lot of people from around here. Al Nimson is a good buddy of mine who I once when I got into comedy, he's somebody that I met early on, and he has certain jokes where like sometimes I'll text him out of the blue, just like some of the lines from that. Just the story that he told is so funny. Like he has this joke about how he met a guy with no eyes. And it's just the way that he said, no eyes. And he pauses and he goes, yeah, that's how I felt too. And like, because the whole crowd, you can kind of feel them kind of be like, no eyes. Yeah. And like, just the way that he delivers. Right. It's just like certain
it's funny. Yeah. Like
certain
it's
words.
Just the spin people take. If you can find something weird, like, obviously he's like a mainstream comedian, but Theo Von. Mm-hmm. I never know if his stories are real or if he's just completely making them up. But but the way he tells them and like the way he talks is just so funny. He like puts like a hillbilly spin on it a little bit.
He's got a unique style, and I think that it comes down to like
it just sounds so dumb.
Yeah,
but it's like makes me laugh for some reason. I'm like, what is he talking about?
And like I remember, I mean, I don't know. Like I was born in '85, so my first exposure to Theo Von was whenever he was on The Road Rules or The Real World, whichever one he was on.
He was on one of those.
He was on one of those like way back in the day, and like that wrestler, The Miz, he was also. Like, I don't know if he was in The Road Rules New York, and like the Miz would get drunk, and Mike would get drunk, and that's when the Miz would come out, and it was this wrestling persona. Mike, So I always thought that it was interesting to see that was this thing that like obviously he had been thinking about for all this time. He would have made it as a wrestler.
Yeah.
But I know that the first time that I saw The Miz was on The Real World. And whenever I see him working the mic on like a wrestling program or like some clip I see online, it's like
just pops in your head.
I get so excited because I'm like, dude, that was his weird dream that he made into some like a life.
See, I just don't I feel like I should have known Theo Von a long time ago because I know he's been around a while, but like I
think he was a little
him,
different back then. Like his hair was shorter, I believe, and now he's just got like
the mullet and
he's got the mullet, he's got the twang, he's got the way that Bert Kreischer has his thing. Yeah.
like what is he talking about? It's so funny.
It's interesting to hear like comedians that I look up to, like Bill Burr. Like, okay, so my first exposure to Bill Burr was when he was on the Chappelle Show.
I was going to say, he was on. Didn't he have his own show at one point?
No, that you might be thinking Chris Titus. He kind of looks like him.
Yeah.
They kind of got that longer forehead.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's got a couple podcasts, but he did. He had F is for Family. It was an animated show on Netflix.
Okay.
But I don't think he had a live action show. But he played several characters in the Chappelle Show.
No, yeah, I know.
Every time I saw him on there, I'm like, there's just a certain way that he delivers certain lines that really made him stand out.
Yeah.
And so
when he's got kind of that angriness in his comedy, it's like it's great.
He certainly does. You know, he's got that Boston accent. He's got.
What was it? The special at Red Rocks that he just had, was that?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
Yeah. My friend Dean Del Rey, who I brought up earlier, he opened for him on that tour, like warming up for that, nice. And then he also opened for him at that event.
Yeah.
So I think awesome. that has been one of the weirdest things too. It's just like, okay, I think back when I was on Twitter, like I think maybe 2009 or something like that, I came across Doug Benson's Twitter, and I'm like, oh, I didn't really understand how Twitter worked.
Yeah.
I didn't get that they could see my responses and they might reply to what I'm saying.
Right.
They might like it. They might DM me and say, hey, you're a jerk, like a big name comedian did one time, but I'm not going to say the name, Doug Benson. Whatever. It is what it is. But that's where I ran into Dean Del Rey. I believe it was over some conversation about like Metallica or something.
Yeah.
I discovered Metallica and Iron Maiden very late in life, I think. And I don't know a lot of people in my age range. I'm 37 that like that kind of stuff. Dean Del Rey's 58, I think. And so like he was there at Metallica's first like shows and things like that. It's interesting to hear somebody talk about that.
Yeah.
And
my dad had some crazy stories about concerts, man.
Oh, it's wild.
I mean, I can't imagine seeing those bands that were like got so mega like famous, like back then. You
Did
know
he go to? Is your dad from around here?
He was born up by Chicago. I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
Okay.
But no, we've lived here most of our lives, but he did not. He met my mom here, and then they moved away.
I got you.
And then they moved back here when I was basically like right after I was born.
Oh, I gotcha.
Yeah, through a series of events.
They used to do a bunch of shows down at the State Armory.
Yeah, so I remember that used to be like a convention center, basically, right?
Yeah, and then the convention center came along, but like Van Halen played there.
Really?
Yeah, there was this urban legend. I thought it was an urban legend. It actually happened to be truth. Van Halen came here on their first world tour, and they were partying on the way down, trashed the limo. The whole thing with hey, only red M&Ms in this bowl, only like that's true. Like
that's how they wanted them.
They just did it to see if people would do it.
Like on their rider or whatever.
Yeah. And like I guess they got here and they trashed. Oh man. Like yeah, to see.
I'd be like, I want the peanuts out of a Snickers bar.
Cut them all out, but put the peanuts next to the rest of the Snickers bar because I like to mix it in there by myself. But just to kind of hear how some of these stories intersect.
Yeah.
You know, a first world tour for a band that a bunch of bands go on tours all the time.
Yeah.
What was it that was different about Van Halen? What was it that was different about
the
Kiss? Kiss also came through here on their first world tour.
I mentioned I was listening to Ric Flair on Joe Rogan, and he talks about coming to Springfield, Illinois. Mm-hmm. Like, you know what I mean? He's like, I'd go here, and we'd go to Springfield, Illinois. And he talks about, and I was like, oh, I can't believe he's like, talks about that.
And so like sometimes you try to find, I know I've in my mind, I guess, is like, okay, when did that go away?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you mean to tell me that You mean to tell me that Buddy Holly was going to play? This is actually a sad one. Buddy Holly was scheduled to play at the State Armory like a couple weeks before his plane went down. They still had the event at the State Armory with the poster and everybody else that was supposed to be on the show, but like Richie Valens obviously couldn't be there. Buddy Holly was dead as well.
Wow,
but there's like a Springfield history group, and like there are some people who were commenting on it, and they're like, "Oh, I was there, and it was surreal. It was kind of weird."
Yeah,
because they kept the original promotions and everything. But Lynn Trumper was the name of the guy that used to set up a bunch of those shows. So like he had like Kiss come through. The Eagles played here for $4.
Wow.
But like it's just a matter of sometimes finding who's the dude or the
how
dude.
How the hell do you know this? Like, how do you have this history?
I wrote an article about. So I thought I heard a story about that, and I think I Googled it or something, and I found a whole bunch of things, and then I wrote an article about the State Armory and all the things that they used to have, and they're doing renovations on it right now.
What was the article for?
It was for the Lamp out at Lincoln Lands.
Oh, okay.
So I like went down there, like took pictures like through the closed glass and stuff like that, and I called up Mr. Lynn Trumper, he was nice enough to like talk to me on the phone for like a half hour, and so that was really neat to just kind of find, these kind of talks are interesting. You know?
No,
and so
for
like,
sure. I mean, that's why I love doing this, because you just talk to, like, especially nowadays, like I don't get very often where I get to just sit down with somebody and talk for an extended period of time. With kids and work, and it's like nonstop, like all over the place, you know what I mean? So it's like, that's one of the things I love here. It's like, you get to relax for a minute, have a conversation, and probably learn something you never knew. Like, exactly. We did a podcast yesterday with the guys from i3 Broadband, and they were saying that got started by Family Video originally. And I was like,
wow.
I was like, really? I was like, I used to do a bunch of work for Family Video when I worked at a sign company. And then I figured out, like, they're old. Anyway, there's little things. It's like, wow, that's cool to know.
And that's another company with interesting stories. A sign company, old man. They've got some wild stories that I'm currently taking classes at UIS, and the owner came out and like was talking to us about all that stuff.
Cool.
And I just remember,
nice.
And I remember years ago when they were like, oh, surprise, this sign is at the Super Bowl. And it's like, wait, back this story up. Is nobody interested in this? Like, nobody,
like, they flew me out there for that.
That's cool.
To film the unveiling of it.
That's so cool.
That's actually one of the main things that kicked off, like, me wanting to go, like, move away and go to video. Mm-hmm. Like, because so they had me film, like, document basically making these letters, and then they flew me out there to film the unveiling. Well, before we went out there, they had the letters here in town, and they had this big party, and invited out all the who's who or whatever of town. They're connected with all the business owners and stuff, and we played this video I made of building the letters, and everyone's like, wow, that's so amazing, and giving me all this credit, and like, oh, you really did a good job and stuff. And then, I mean, that wasn't the only thing, but that was something where I was like, man, video is fun. Like, I really loved making this video and editing it and telling that story of making them in a fun way, with music and all that stuff.
Absolutely.
And then, there was other things that happened. My father was sick, and he ended up passing away, and then I was like, oh, I want to change, you know what I mean? And that was also like social media was getting so big, and it was just kind of, I was like, I'm going to go for this. Try this out.
I mean, I think that is totally underrated. And nobody knows that they need that kind of service until it's very late in the game, until your business planner sometimes comes in at the last minute and is like, you need to figure out a way to nobody knows you exist.
Oh yeah.
Nobody knows that your business is here.
There's so many businesses in town that start and shut down, and I'm like, I never even saw a post from them on social media.
Nothing. Nothing.
Just, people don't work it into like their business plan or their budget or whatever. It's like the Astra comedy thing. Like, I'm sure people posted, but I never saw it. The only reason I even got to go is somebody at my wife's salon was like, hey, do you guys want to all go to this? Like all the people in the salon there. And she was like, hey, there's this comedy thing at Astra. Do you want to go? And I was like, yeah, of course. I love comedy.
Yeah. And that's the thing a lot of time is like people just, they don't know.
Yeah.
They don't know. And like
how to get it out there right or whatever. Yeah.
And like how do you see it? How am I going to present it to you? And so like if I make a poster and it's just some generic poster and I post it, you might just keep scrolling by it.
Yeah. And it's hard for an event because if you're trying to market an event that's never happened, you don't have any pictures, you don't have any video, there's nothing to use to properly market it.
Exactly.
It makes it so tough. You have to kind of just, like, maybe there would be footage of you guys previously doing comedy somewhere that you could use to promote it a little bit. But,
sure.
Yeah.
And that's one thing, like, I've been toying with different stuff, you know. Okay, so I made this poster here. Oh, cool. And, like, I'm like, all right, this poster's about to set it all on fire. Here we go. And it's like, oh, all right, that's it. Okay, cool. Oh, I guess I forgot everybody's making a poster. Oh, and all right, so the show's today.
Yeah.
I posted it today. Some of these people won't see it for 9 days.
Yeah.
On Facebook or whatever.
Yeah, you gotta really.
But if I
shoving it down people's throats.
Oh man, I've been taking the same posters and okay, but now I'll save it and I'll put it in like a video format and I'll add something over the top of it.
Or do like a green screen, talk in front of it.
Right.
Type thing.
I've been taking like different editing apps like CapCut. It's something I never thought I would ever use, really.
It's a good little basic video editor.
It is. And then once I started scrolling through TikTok, and maybe 2 months ago, I started noticing the same filters on these marketing videos.
It's made by them. Same company. Yeah.
Well, like, okay, so like you might see, who was it? Pedro Pascal, is that his name? The guy from The Last of Us. I've never seen The Last of Us. I've seen him eating a sandwich. I've seen him eating a sandwich a whole bunch, like, in Charmin's in the background.
Yeah.
Or like he's eating a sandwich.
But you know that green screen thing that you can do on those? Yeah, that's what I would do.
Exactly.
Have the poster in the background. I did that for an event. They asked me to a guest announce a charity dodgeball event. So like I just put the poster behind me and I was like moving around, like pointing at the different parts while I was talking about it or whatever, telling people to come out.
I mean, think about that. Like 20 years ago, if I saw somebody that was in my community doing that, I'd be like, the budget on this guy. Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's wizardry.
I know, it's crazy.
Goodness.
It's amazing,
and
man. Our phones, the cameras on them are better quality than Hollywood, 15, 20 years ago.
A lot of the times it's just it's finding, all right, what's the thing right now? Why is Linger by the Cranberries a trending song on TikTok whatever?
It puts the focus on the creator's ability to create something entertaining. Like that's what it does, is it removes limitations. Nobody can say I don't have a camera, I don't have a microphone, I don't know how to edit, I don't have a computer that I can edit on. It's all on there, and it removes the limitations of creation, and it's all up to what you want to do. You know what I mean? So I think I agree. It's really an amazing thing.
I totally agree. I think that nothing made that more clear to me than like being, 2020 when everything kind of shut down. I'm on Twitter a bunch, and I'm coming across these tweets doing massive numbers, and these people have used 33 characters. Or like on TikTok, where these people have edited a 15 or 30-second clip of whatever, and like when you ask them what do you do, like what do you do every day? Oh, I work at GameStop. Oh wait, you're not a comedian or something like that? And they're like, no, I'm just making these videos. I'm like, you need to figure out how to get an agent and sell these, because what are you going to do with these million followers? Well, I don't know. I think it's kind of cool. You need to monetize this, because
and that's a whole nother challenge. You can get followers, but figuring out how to monetize them and get them to somehow support you is a completely different
what is this thing about?
Yeah.
And
now for a comedian, obviously, like getting them to come out to a show.
Sure.
And that's what's awesome. That's what I love about it is that it sucks because they get all your data in a way. People don't like that. But to have the data is such a valuable thing. Like I said, Bert Kreischer was probably just like, oh, I see I have this many followers in this area. Yeah, we'll be able to sell out or sell enough tickets to make it worth it. Let's do it.
Sure.
It is, and for entertainers, that's such a valuable thing to know that, to be able to analyze that stuff and make informed decisions where you're not just guessing. You're going to show up at the convention center and have 30 people there. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. You know what is kind of weird with that as well is like that's a great way to look at it. But like what I've heard a lot from, I feel like too many entertainers or people in the entertainment industry, it's like, I've got a buddy of mine, the guy that's Dean Del Rey, he will literally gig anywhere that hires him. Mm-hmm. And, sometimes people just kind of be like, I don't know. Or what do you guys need? I can actually, we can get this thing going on. It's just like Kiss came here, like on a Monday, and like they could have done a show in Chicago, but I think like maybe the money was, but also
they probably saved the Chicago show for a weekend. You know what I mean? They look at what are the days.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
I think Bert was here on a weekday. You know what I mean? But
I
he's
think
like,
he was here Friday.
Was he? Okay.
Yeah.
But it's like, I'm driving from here to here. Mm-hmm. Why not stop here and just do a show?
Exactly.
That's
how the guy Lynn Trumper, he said that he would look at, okay, so the Eagles are going to be in St. Louis on this day.
Oh, and figure out when.
And then they're going to be in Milwaukee on this day. But on these days, there's nothing.
They need somewhere to stop and sleep overnight.
They do that. There's a place, the Backroom Lounge out in Riverton. From what I understand, they do like a similar thing.
Cool.
So they've had like a bunch of acts back there in this tiny room. And so like, from what I understand, like a lot of like maybe up and coming stars, they'll play there for like, we love to play.
Yeah.
We don't have to play this kind of a room, but we love to play. You've got a great establishment. We like your vibe or whatever. And like, it seems like a lot of vibes are just going out in like entertainment world. It's a strange environment for me, coming from, but it's a great thing because like I said, I was in sales for, I don't know, combined 10 years. And it's like once you're in like autopilot of doing somebody else's thing for a while, nothing against car sales at all. I had a lot of great times.
Oh, yeah.
And I will credit maybe a conversation. There was a conversation I had with one of my coworkers one day, was killing a bunch of time. And he's just cracking up. He said, "Are you like rehearsing like a comedy routine?" And I'm like, "No. Like, do you think that's funny?" And he was like, "Yeah." I said, "Would you go and see that if I did?" And he's like, "Yeah, I would." And he actually came out to my first open mic.
Nice.
By himself. Came out and saw it.
Where else in town does open mics? Doesn't like Anvil? Does Anvil and Forge do one?
They have one on the second and fourth Wednesday of every month. So there's one tomorrow. There's one tomorrow night. If you're free, drop on by. I'll put your name on the list.
Do you do that usually?
I drop by that one, yeah. So that's a good one.
Does anywhere else do it in town?
Buzz Bomb, they have one once monthly that's hosted by Larry Smith.
Cool.
And so that one we just had that one last week. We had a comedian from Peoria. We were a couple from Champaign. Some from Decatur come through.
Nice. I thought, so here was my idea. This is kind of what I was asking, if you thought that the community would be there to support it, is last year we took over, we bought 217 Problems, the page.
Oh, cool.
And, it reaches like between 1 and 2 million people a month. Mm-hmm. And I was like, man, what if we had like a 217 Problems comedy club? It seems like a perfect tie-in.
Oh, heck yeah.
You know what I mean? If you played off it, I'm like, that would be so awesome. You could kind of cater it to the thing. Maybe, I don't know. There's just, as soon as I thought about that, I was like, man, so many ideas are running through my head. I was like, God, that would take so much work to book the comedians and just do the whole thing. Like, obviously, the marketing, the setup, all that wouldn't be a problem, but it's like the whole, like, running it and making sure there's people there to, you know what I mean?
Right.
That's a whole nother story, which I have no experience in booking people and you know what I mean? So
and that's one of the odd things is like, it's just some, people wear their hats, and so like you said that would be no problem, like doing the marketing and all that kind of stuff. Like that's where like a lot of comedians, they're just kind of like, I don't know. Or like when it comes to like the business side of it, a lot of the times they'll be like, oh, man. And it's like, you're going to have that talk. I would have that talk now before you drive from here to Clinton, Iowa.
Right.
And find out that you're performing for Catfish Nuggets tonight. Yeah. Like, you're going to have, like, when you're doing these things, I'm not doing a free show for somebody.
Right.
I've been doing this. I've seen what the tickets can generate. So, like,
what do they usually do on open mics? Just like
open mics. A lot of the times,
do they charge people to come in for open mics at places?
Not here. There are some, like in other cities, like they might charge
established clubs.
Yeah, they might charge like $5 for the audience members to come in, and free for the comedians to perform. And so, it's like an interesting, trade off. But then there are some places where they're just like, they see, hey, we wouldn't have had 50 people in here just on a Wednesday without these guys.
Right.
And so that's always nice to go somewhere to where they understand that and they respect that. And like, not to say, I ain't got to be a baby that needs burping, but like if we're bringing in a set number of people, if we're performing and then once the show's over, 30 people get up and leave, and it's like that every single time.
Right.
You need to start looking at these people with a different set of eyes.
Well, especially if they have any kind of following, you know what I
right.
mean? I imagine nowadays that a lot of places look at that. Like, well, how many followers does this comedian have? What do they got? What does their reach look like?
I wish I knew.
I would think. Like,
I wish I knew.
If some random comedian that I had no idea who it was, like, was gonna. I mean, I don't know. I would think you would probably have to reach out to book people for the most part. But if someone reached out like, hey, I want to come perform there, I'd be like, all right, well, you know what I mean? Well, because you could base that off of like, well, how many people are probably going to come if this person's this popular? You know what I mean? You can have an idea.
I like the way you think, and it would make sense to think that way. But believe me, I've had conversations with some places before where like I've said, oh, I noticed that you're having such and such next month. That's pretty awesome, isn't it? And they're like, oh, is it? We don't know anything about it or about him.
But is the person you're talking to who booked them? I guess would
the
be the
owner of the
wonder.
establishment. The owner,
right. But did he book them? You know what I mean?
They sometimes places will they'll just say, yeah, pay us $500 and you can use this place. And it's like, well, wait a second, hold on. Like you would think that they would say I would think a percentage if I were that,
So if someone's paying somebody to use the place, would they then just get the ticket sales probably, or
it
just varies?
So you can run it one of two ways. You can just do pure ticket sales. We're going to split the ticket sales, or you're going to hire me in this group for X amount of dollars.
Yeah.
So it's really up to you guys.
Yeah.
But
I guess down in, Joe Rogan opened his comedy club in Austin, and I guess nobody will say what he's doing right now. I don't think it's came out, but I guess he's doing something crazy. The way he's like paying comedians, I guess it's like ridiculous. And he's like, and it doesn't matter for him because he's not trying to make money. He doesn't care. He just wants the comedy there.
I've heard mixed things. So I read one thing. I heard a lot of people. I heard some people say, "Oh, Joe Rogan. Oh, he's saying." This is a club where you can't get canceled, and sometimes certain words will garner a different, how it is. That's gonna have a different response on a whole group of people. So, from what I understand, at this club, you have to give your phone up. You got to put your phone in one of these bags.
Right. I had to do that at his show with Dave Chappelle, but I was there with my bag and it just opened up at one point.
Right.
And I was like, I'm going to take a picture.
Right. But like, I think, John Mayer, I don't think he does the bag thing, but he had a recent tour where he's like, hey, I prefer if we're not streaming.
Yeah.
Because you're not in the moment.
Yeah.
There's a chance that like if I'm telling a joke, and not to say that I'm not really concerned. I don't have anything that you can cancel me for right now. But like, let's say Joe Rogan is trying new material, and some joke goes weird,
right?
And somebody is able to take that
or
and post it out of context. And now we got a firestorm, and now we're grilling a comedian on Thursday morning about a joke he told on Wednesday night.
Yeah,
and he doesn't even know.
Small clip of
and it's like, dude, I'm not preaching up here. I'm joking.
Yeah, but it's something about the way he's paying him. Mm-hmm. And I don't know what that is. I was trying to search. Andrew Scholes was talking about it.
Yeah, I love that guy.
Yeah, he's funny. I actually when he was releasing his comedy special on his own or whatever, because they were like trying to get him to cut jokes, and I was like, oh, I'm definitely paying and helping him out, because fuck that, like anyone trying to get you to cut jokes, that's bullshit. So I paid for his little comedy special
strong
he did
numbers,
last time,
man.
But he was saying that the way that Joe Rogan's paying people, he's like, he asked me not to tell anybody or like put it out there on like that. He's like, but it's crazy. He's like, the way that he's paying all these, because he's got all of his friends, the big comedians down there, and I don't know what he's doing, but I'd be interested to know, just out of curiosity.
A buddy of mine just performed there.
Really?
Yeah, he just performed there.
How about the Kill Tony thing? What do you think about that, though? You get up there, have like a minute and a half or something?
I like that kind of concept.
That'd be hard.
They run a lot of shows like that down in St. Louis.
Minute.
They have what do they have?
You can't even get into a story.
That's the thing, is like,
you gotta come immediately. I was thinking about that. I'm like, what would you even what would I even come out there with?
On it. Yeah. And that's what I like about, we got a very laid back style up here. The way that I tell stories, really, I got to set up the thing. I like to have 15 minutes because it might take me, I'm on-ramp into this thing. St. Louis, they have, they might have 30 comics in one establishment at one mic, so they're flying through them.
Yeah.
Everybody got 4 or 5 minutes, and by the time their 5 minutes is done, I mean, they're just flying through these things. So it's like, whoa. But they've got something called, it's the Crow's Nest wild card is what it is. And they draw a card, and whatever this card is on this board, okay, now you have to do an English accent and speak as if you're from England, using facts and everything for the next 60 seconds.
Give you a stipulation on how I wouldn't even be able to do that. I'm terrible.
And I thought, when I heard it, I can do this. And then I remember being like, how many seconds do I have left?
Yeah.
And like, when you see people, the first 15 people ahead of you were doing this and they're killing it. Well, and then you're doing it and you're kind of bombing it.
Yeah.
It's tough to go back sometimes.
It's weird.
It's tough, but
what's the best place down there?
Oh man,
what's a good spot? Like a good little.
I like the Heavy Anchor on. They have a good open mic on Mondays. You can see almost anybody down there. Helium is great.
Heavy Anchor.
Yeah, they have a good mic, and then they have ticketed events every once in a while. Helium is great. Helium, they have like the kind of like bigger name comedians you would expect to see in the clubs. You'll see at Helium.
It's kind of a funny name, Helium.
Yeah. And then the Funny Bone, I think, is it in O'Fallon? I can't remember. A lot of those places, it's all St. Louis to me.
Yeah,
so like when they're calling it Maplewood and stuff, I'm like, that's St. Louis.
We don't live here.
Yes, my GPS says that it's right here, and I'm in St. Louis because I can see the arch.
Yeah.
So it's like,
that's cool. I need to go down there and check out maybe some smaller places or something.
That's where they host the Flyover Comedy Festival, and so like they had, I think last year they had like Ron Funches in, and Sarah Silverstein headlined one of the nights, and like you see a lot of great comics that like, are they household names? No, but like I met a guy, Ronaldo Mercado is his name. I first met him on a Monday, at the Heavy Anchor, and he had just come off of a weekend of shows opening for Hassan Minaj. Like thousands of people were there. And then I was seeing this dude on the Monday, and then he and I gigged together on a Friday. And I think the attendance at that show, it was me, the other comics, maybe 3 audience members. And I just remember we're looking at each other like, what the hell is going on?
Yeah.
And I'm driving back to Springfield, and I'm like, why do I do this? I got another show tomorrow in another city, and I'm just thinking, I'm wasting myself. What am I doing? But I walk into this show, and so now there's 300 people at this show.
Yeah, what's the most you've ever stood in front of?
500 or 600, I think.
Wow.
I think it was like 500 or 600, and like,
where was that at?
Hillsboro.
Nice.
Yeah. And so for me, I did jazz band in high school. I did symphonic band and all those other things. Once the lights are on, I can't see beyond the first row anyway.
Yeah.
Even if the lights are on, I can see everybody. I always take it in my mind and I say, all right, well, I have the microphone. Like, as trivial as it sounds, I have the microphone for the next 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And there's really, I know what I'm doing here. So I'm not going to walk this crowd. The only time, sometimes it gets a little hairy if you're doing a mic or something, or doing a show and it's in a bar or an establishment where like it's not dedicated for this thing.
Right.
It can go anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And you just kind of have to work through it. But if it's a dedicated comedy show, I think for the most part, I'm going to be okay with it.
What do they do with like hecklers? Like at a point, do they get kicked out? I mean, I would imagine they let them stay a little bit, right?
Sure.
Because I feel like it helps almost like a comedian like have
Usually.
to deal with that or learn to deal with different people. But at a point, I'm just thinking of like if I had a club, how would you deal with that? Like it's just got to.
Well, usually ahead of it, you just kind of say, so at Astra, I hosted that show, and we actually had a little talk outside about how, what's going to happen once we get this thing going. Mm-hmm. And so Larry was kind enough to say, okay, so before I introduce you, the host for the show, Richard, I'm going to go up and let everybody know that they've got a silencer. Please silence your cell phones. If you got a watch or something, please silence that. If you need to smoke, there's the door back there. Please participate, but don't realize that you're not sitting at home.
Right.
Like this isn't Netflix at home. I can hear you.
Yeah.
I can see you.
Especially when it's not like a huge place.
Yeah.
It's like, come on, man.
I can hear you. Like yesterday I was, and this, let me handle the heckler thing first. Usually it doesn't get too bad, but I've been places before where it is bad. And if we've already said that thing, now it goes to the owner of the place. Right. Whoever's managing this, if they're a good owner or manager, you have to say something.
Eventually they say something.
Like there were some people talking at Astra, and the owner came over to us at a certain point and said, let us know if it gets too bad. I'll go and I'll say something. I'm like, it hasn't been too bad, and Larry has addressed everything so far.
Right.
And the show went the way that it went, and Larry handled it in a way that I don't know if I could have done that. Right. He, you're feeling out a weird, I'm doing a wine crowd. I remember saying that to myself. I'm driving down, if I could get out of a time machine and tell myself in high school that I'm about to do this, he'd say, wait, what? Huh?
Yeah.
You don't even like wine.
Drinking wine and eating charcuterie boards. I'm like, man, is there any food here? What do we got? Crackers? For
the most part, people are cool. And they understand that, it is what it is. But there was one time, this is at Bar None, a guy was heckling me. And he started heckling me through a box fan. He was
talking through it?
Yeah. I'm your conscience. And I'm like, what is going on right now? I think that was my second set of the night. So I'm feeling a little loose.
Yeah.
And it did kind of get into my head. I think I was in my first couple months of comedy, and I'm like, what is? And I was kind of upset. And I was like, I guess when you're, everybody has an off night. And then he heckled the next guy. And I realized that this was just something that he was doing.
Just there to be a dick.
And I said, well, why don't you sign up and tell some jokes if you think you're so funny? So he got up there, and he started to talk. And he said, the other day I was leaving Walmart, and I said, no, he wasn't. I was out there. I didn't see him. And he stops, and he looks at me. He says, well, which Walmart was I leaving? Which one am I talking about? And when he said that, that's when I said to myself, oh. Oh. Okay. All right. So this is what we have. This isn't he's got something else going on.
Yeah.
Whatever the thing is, and like I'm just gonna I don't think I said another word to that guy, because there are some people out there sometimes that, like, you've seen the clips where somebody throws, like, there was a gal that was telling some joke somewhere within the last year, and I have only seen this girl. I couldn't even tell you her name, but somebody in the crowd said Biden, and she said, what? And she said, you voted for Biden. And she's like, what are you talking about? And the audience member said, I can tell by the way you're telling your jokes you voted for Biden. And she's like, I don't know what's going on right now. And, like, I can't remember what she said.
Yeah.
But she went on, and a couple seconds pass, and a tall boy flies by her head. And that audience member, like, I think the rest of the audience was like, Tammy, what the hell? Like, what? Come on, Tammy, And bad enough if everybody knows who the person was.
Right.
This is a repeat offender.
Yeah.
She should have probably been banned from the club prior to this.
Right.
But sometimes people get so mad and they do these things, and it's like, I don't understand how we got here. I've seen clips of people storming the stage and attacking comedians with mic stands, punching them, waiting for them after the show, and it's like, the owner should have did something with you a long, long time ago.
Right.
Thankfully, I've never been in that type of situation.
Obviously,
but
you don't understand comedy.
Right.
This isn't a big
I would
deal.
say, I mean, if you've
everyone's trying to have a good time here, man.
Yeah. I mean, if you've had the thought to do a club or something like that, I think that I believe, this is my personal belief, and I'm not just saying this because I would love to perform there as often as possible, but I would. But I just think that is a lot of the hard part, is the marketing and how do I get in people's faces.
Yeah.
And the rest of it, like the booking and like how does this thing go? You really only need like a set group of comics. Like Donnie B he's got like
through a lot of people throughout.
Yeah, he's got like the same X amount of people, and I know this because I've seen their posters, the same picture, the same dude for 15 years, and I might be sick of it, but like why would he change it if I'm Donnie B, I'm gonna do the same thing.
Yeah.
I maybe switch somebody out, every once in a while here, but like he's done a really good job of being the person that's bringing comedy here consistently.
Yeah,
seems
like he knows a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean, I met Tom Arnold because Donnie B brought him to Green Hyundai when I was working there. I got cut off by the Planter's Peanut. I was like, I'm getting fired today. I'm running late to work. And then I got cut off by the Planter's Peanut. And I was like, they will never believe me that Mr. Peanut cut me off. And then he drove into Green Hyundai.
Oh, nice.
And then he came dancing out of the bathroom. And everything was just so cool. Cause like,
I was going to say, he might have been on his way to our place.
You guys have...
We had the Peanut crew on the podcast one time when they were in town.
Oh,
it was the Peanuts, right? Not the Wiener. It was the Peanut. Yeah.
Oh, my God. I love it. I love it.
Yeah, it was funny. They were at a client of ours, and Ryan was like, man, they're over there. I was like, man, see if they'll come back here and do the podcast.
Uh-huh.
So they came back, and we just talked to them about what goes into that. Like, you guys are driving around in this giant peanut all the time. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
That's kind of interesting to hear.
Did you now you did media. Did you study marketing as well?
So my major, once I went to Western, was I majored in graphic design and minored in marketing.
Okay.
I had a couple classes that were like pretty good. But honestly, I must spend most of my time partying.
Sure.
It was an expensive party, but it was good though. It was a good experience. Get that out of my system and have some fun before going into the real world.
Learn a little bit,
And I did learn some things. Probably like a lot of the stuff I knew prior, as far as like the programs and stuff like that. But it was good overall. I think I was lucky. My father made a deal with me. If I went to Lincoln Land for 2 years and paid for that, he would pay for my last 2 years at a college.
Mm-hmm.
If he didn't do that, I would probably be a little bit more regretful of the debt that would have been incurred.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
So I don't know. I think college is changing. I mean, unless you're like going for like to get a degree and like to be a lawyer or a doctor, I don't know. It's really, one of those things. Here's what it does: is it provides a structure that you can follow to go and learn. And if you're not self-motivated and have the ability to create that structure yourself and stick to it and teach yourself something, then it's a great option.
Sure.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah, because it takes a lot to make yourself do something. You know what I mean? It
really does.
And there's so many distractions. And
Absolutely. Stuff. Like I'm taking classes right now. I went back to school during the pandemic, and then everything kind of opened up, and I'm like, oh man, I want to go back to like work now. And I'm like, oh goodness. And like, okay, all right, fine. But luckily you kind of get so I walked out of my car sales job. I never walked out of a job before in my entire life.
Just over it.
I had words with the manager, and I just didn't like the way that he was treating me, combined with the fact that my son had called me that morning on my way to work, and he wanted to do something. And I'm like, the last place I want to be today is on this lot. I'd rather be hanging out with my son, who's like, he can't really rap his. I mean, he gets it, but like, man. So I was already planning on going back to school at a certain point. But like, I think I had said that for the past 5 years,
right.
every couple of months in car sales. And it wasn't until I walked out on a Saturday, I went down to Alton, hung out in Alton, had a great Saturday with my girlfriend, and then Sunday I was in the bathroom washing my hands, and I remember thinking to myself as I looked in the mirror, I'll just go back to the other dealership because they don't know that I walked out, and I'll get the sign-on bonus. And I'll be like, I'll sign on right now if you give me X amount. I'll leave that place.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is fail-safe. And I walked out, and she said, I must have been, maybe I was muttering it under my breath. I don't know. But she was like, I just want to tell you, I'm really excited and I'm proud that you left that job that you hate that was like no good for you and blah, 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 blah. I'm like, I was in the bathroom thinking that very same thing.
Yeah.
And I sat down next to her and we're watching something on TV, and I'm like, oh my God, I can't. Oh my God, I have no money. And then I could put my son on the bus the next morning. And then I was like, oh, I signed up for Uber. I forgot I signed up for Uber a while back ago. And I think it was by noon of that day, I looked at how much money I'd made, and I was like, I'll never go back to the dealership.
So did you just Uber for extra money? And
that's school? What I just stopped, and that's what I was doing. And like in between every ride, I would think to myself, this is the worst plan I've ever had in my life. Like, what am I doing? Oh, I got to go to Lowe's. Or, oh, look at this store I've never gotten a chance to go to. So, like, now I'm, like, going here and doing this. And, like, oh, I've never had the chance to just stop and sit on this park bench ever.
Yeah.
And once I started, it's a lot of risk. There's a whole lot of risk. Then I started listening to, going back to Dean Del Rey again. And people, I know that they're probably sick of me talking about this dude. I tell every comedian that I've ever met about this guy. He's one of the coolest dudes I've ever met. One of the coolest dudes I've ever listened to. But like, once you get to, how it is, you meet certain people and it's like, oh, you're in a different planet here. What are you wasting your time talking to somebody? You know what I mean?
Right.
But I started listening. I remember that he had a podcast. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, let me go back and listen to this podcast. And
Nice.
I'm just scrolling through the podcast episodes, and I'm like, wait, he sat down with Cedric Bixler from the Mars Volta, like, and he's like, yeah, Cedric Bixler. And like, I don't know if you're familiar with that band. It's like progressive rock kind of fusion band, big with like Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Okay.
John Frusciante played on like 3 of their albums. Like their guitarist would show him what he wanted to play, and John would just record it.
Cool.
And but I got to this episode where Dean was talking about the owner for this bike shop that he used to sell motorcycles. He's like, yeah, after I did music for 25 years, I was touring with like the Rolling Stones and like opening for like Lenny Kravitz and stuff. And I'm like, what? What? He's like, yeah, so I walked into this Harley shop and I got a job there because I used to, I big into motorcycles, and I had a specialty bike. Long story short, he worked there for several years and was like a consultant for a show. Like these people came through to buy these bikes. And like, yeah, we'll take that old Yamaha. We'll take that Indian bike. Yeah, that Harley, that's cool. He's like, what are you doing with these? And like, oh, we're going to make a TV show. And he's like, what's the TV show about? And they're like, oh, this biker gang. And he's like, are they all in the same gang? And they're like, yeah. And they're like, oh, no, you got to have all Harleys. And they're like, why? And they're like, oh, because actual biker people will never believe this show if everybody just like willy-nilly on these weird bikes. Like, you got to know this culture. It ended up being Sons of Anarchy.
Wow. That
he was like giving them tips on like what to use and stuff. And he like worked on this show as an extra for a while.
Cool.
This dealership would let him just come and go as he pleased because he was such a great salesperson.
Yeah.
And so then he started doing stand-up because of just like killing time as an extra on like a set of a movie with Ice Cube and like the comedian Earthquake, and like they're like, hey, you're funny, you should try comedy sometimes.
That's cool.
And he said that he just didn't know how to start. Like there's no school about comedy. There's nobody. You watch it on TV and this guy's polished, I guess. But like what you don't know about watching this dude is like he might just be riffing on stage.
Right.
A lot of people have their hard 5 where it's like once you remember that, you're touring on this until you make it big. But like he was saying how he got to a point where he was selling bikes all the time during the day, and then he was working at the comedy store. At the time, the comedy store was empty because they had banned Joe Rogan for the Carlos Mencia thing.
Oh, yeah.
So that happened at the comedy store. Pauly Shore's mom, Mitzi Shore, owned that place and banned him.
Yeah.
So he started going to the Improv. So it was empty. Dean Del Rey starts going there with like Mark Maron and Bill Burr and things, and like he's saying that they're like nobodies at the time. I didn't think Bill Burr was a nobody because I had seen him already on the Chappelle Show.
Yeah.
So had I walked into this place, I'd be like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. So he's talking about how he eventually quit that bike job because he's just like, this isn't it for me. But when he quit it, he was like, dude, I gotta get like really funny like right now.
Yeah.
I'm driving around.
Put it on yourself. And
yeah.
Put that pressure on yourself.
And I was driving around listening to this here in Springfield, and it kind of like, I needed to hear that because that's what I was thinking to myself is like, what the hell? Why did I leave this dealership? And like in the meantime, I'm like trying to set up a show in Quincy, and then like that was going to be the launching point for what was going to be a tour for me.
Yeah.
And it was April of 2020. It was when that show was going to go on. So it got canceled.
Right. Well, it's hard to like, terrible timing on that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's hard to like, you get comfortable like living a certain life and making a certain amount of money.
Mm-hmm.
And once that goes away, even though you could do it with less, if you just cut back on spending on whatever random stuff, like it's hard to switch. Like once you get to a certain point, and Yeah, man, it's a grind. I think that's one of the main things that people don't understand is when you're trying to do something that you love and make money doing it, it takes a lot of work to get to a point to make money doing it. Like, I remember when I was starting this business, like, I was doing some videos for free, for $100, couple $100, just doing videos wherever I could. Just to start getting content made so people see it, you know what I mean? And know, like, oh, he can make a video and get that kind of portfolio to then be able to charge. But I was going, I started a photo booth business at the same time because they would give me a loan to buy a piece of equipment. Like, if I was buying an actual piece of equipment, I could get a line of credit to buy it. And I recognized, like, oh, this photo booth, they could make money with easy because there's not really anybody in town doing it. So I would do that on the weekends, and I would garage sale on the weekends.
The wedding stuff?
Yeah.
Way back in the day, that was you?
I would do photo booth rental. Yeah,
that's
photo
awesome.
booth rental on the weekends and garage sale.
Oh my gosh!
And that's basically how I funded Ootbox to.
Dude, that's amazing.
But it was working fucking all week basically. Now I didn't have kids. I can't imagine trying to do this with a kid. You know what I mean? Still spending time with them and stuff like that. So that's a whole nother thing. I say that all the time.
It's tough. I mean, I know that like my son just turned 10, and so like it's like, all right, how much do I want to put out here, in what context, on where? Because he is on this thing,
right?
So
that's a tough thing to be limited to.
And it's so hard because it's like, well, and so we've had our talks to where it's like, okay, if you come across this stuff, you can't, I don't want to see a referral because of this,
right?
But he's a funny kid. He's gonna find me regardless.
Yeah,
I cannot hide from this guy online. He actually, some of my closing jokes for the past several years have been something that he's said or a scenario that we've had.
Yeah.
But like, I was telling somebody recently.
Well, it's also the life you're living. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the funny stuff happens to you.
Yeah.
It's just like everyone's life's a little different.
Exactly.
So what your context
and
is
so like
different.
my whole thing is like, all right, I have to kind of go from some of these stories that I've heard, Dean Del Rey and Mark Maron and Bill Burr and, these bigger name guys. Do I think I'm on the same train as them? No, but like I said before, these dudes and some of the people that they worked with had to work certain circuits for X amount of years just to get the same amount of eyes on them.
It was a completely different time.
Right.
You could put out one reel that's funny that gets 1 million views, and all of a sudden your subscribers shoot through the roof.
Exactly.
I mean, we have two, I was talking about 2 and 7 Problems. That Facebook page passed 150,000 followers yesterday, but the TikTok only had like 2,500. One video I posted on there took it to like, I think there's like 10,500 followers or something, and that video got like 600,000 views.
Sure.
So it's like all it takes is that one piece of content that you put out there that's going to change everything for you.
Right.
If you just keep putting content out there, that's the most important thing, And again, like we talked about before, it's just people don't want to make that,
right?
Or take the time to, or they overly analyze what they're making instead of just making.
Right. I think that's the thing. I've had to kind of recognize in the last couple months is, all right, what do I want to do with this thing? Because this is a thing. It is a thing. I talked to some comics where it's like, dude, you've got the saddest thing I've seen is seeing a comic that's on fire and then I don't know what happened to them. They just stopped doing comedy. Maybe they got a job and they're like, oh, I don't have to scratch that itch no more. Or like, oh, I got back with my ex-wife, and so like, it's like, oh, wait a second, dude, you had the thing.
Yeah,
like
you're on the path.
I've seen some comics before where it's like they're making up some skit, and it's like, this is far and away from anything I've ever seen you make before, and I know it's out of body for you. And so if I know what's out of body for you, your viewer's gonna know that that's not actually you. They're not going to engage on that. I promise you, they're not going to engage with that. Yeah. But I've also seen, shout out to Autumn McGowan. She's a comic from Peoria, and she took she did the green screen thing with a poster in the background.
Nice.
And she was enthusiastically talking about the people who are on the show and blah, 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 blah. And like, I'm another comic and I'm enthusiastic. I'm excited about this. I've got that fear of loss about a show that's in another place. I'm gigging in another town, but I wish I could be there too. You created that excitement, you know? And I think that's that, maybe it's that car sales thing with me to where it's like, you got to find that thing. You got a customer in there. All right, how do I get this customer excited about it? I'm not going to list every single thing on this car, because if I start at the top, by the time I get to the windows,
they
don't care.
Main thing that
what do you care
about this car?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's tough in that situation. At least you can analyze the person a little bit and try to make a decision, as opposed to just trying to figure out the main thing to sell the event to everybody.
That's why I love going. If I'm in a lineup with 5 comics, I'd love to go on third. I would love to go on.
Get
third.
A little warm up, but don't have to close.
See what's going on. I'm watching to see how people are responding to certain things. Before a show, I'm seeing what people are wearing. Mm-hmm. I'm kind of getting the vibe. Is this person going to freak out if I say a bad word tonight?
Right.
You know. But then also I like the challenge of going first as well, because it's you get the challenge of setting the tone.
Loosen them out.
Right. The shows that we've done in Quincy, I've hosted those, and so like, it's a cold open because they don't get a lot of comedy stuff there. So like they're just kind of like, it takes them a while to kind of realize, all right, and we're all here today.
Yeah.
But I tell you what, the first time we went there, we had strong numbers. I think we had 60 people show up for a town that I haven't lived in since '99, and it was the first show I ever put together. A show I had no business putting together, really.
Right.
By the time we came back the second time, I think we had there were 150, and then we had several other business owners that were in the place. There was another business owner from another theater in town. Like they were like, "Hey, nice. Could we do this thing over here?" And it's like, maybe. Let me talk to this.
Right.
I've done a couple things with this person here. I'd like to establish one. You know, unless we're doing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'd like to have some sort of a partnership. Yeah. But like, I think that like, if you had the idea to do a show like a club, or like even if you just like did a pop-up thing for maybe 3 months, you wanted to try it out, we've got the people that would love to, you know, work with you and kind of nurture that thing.
Be an interesting thing to try.
And I think that's kind of the problem that we're coming up against, is like, I've been in establishments where it's like, we're shoulder to shoulder in here. We're shoulder to shoulder at this comedy show right now, and like, oh wow, this business is certainly going to ask you back, right? And then they go another direction. I think it's just a lot. It goes back to like, well, I don't know how to book these people, and you know, I don't know how to do this thing here. And like, if you can just get somebody that just says, okay, I can kind of handle that part. And I get it. It's a lot to just kind of hand the reins over to somebody like that, but it's because I mean, essentially,
you're almost putting the success on them to an extent. I mean, obviously, if it was something like we would with marketing and all that stuff's fine, but still got to have like the people and make sure they're booked and make sure the money works. You know, the business side of it works out for everybody.
Right.
Yeah, it's a tough thing,
and that's, you know, going back to the show at Astra. You know, I didn't get to ask. Well, like, thankfully, you know, I'm here talking to you, so I found out that you came because your wife heard about it at her job, and so like, you know how rare that is. Usually, when the show lets out, the people are gone, and a lot of us comics are like,
don't have no idea.
Who the hell was that? Where did these people come from?
Right.
How did they hear about it? Was it on Facebook?
I think that's where they saw it, was on Facebook.
And I think that's the thing, is like to find that thing that if it's successful, how do we continue this success? Like the bigger name comics that I talk to, if they're at a comedy club and the thing goes well, while they're in the club, that owner will say, "Okay, cool, I got you down for next February."
Get a booking locked.
Perfect, great, because then it gives that comic the opportunity to say, "Okay, these are my string of dates."
Yeah.
And it takes a little bit off of, I believe, the promoter side of it as well. Because if you got a promoter thinking they got to pay you, well, how much is the travel and the lodging? Yeah. Okay, well, I just need to do it once. Somebody has to pay me to get somewhere. But like, if I start off in Connecticut, I need a whole string of dates there and back or whatever.
Make it worthwhile.
Right.
Yeah.
What I'd say, I mean, I don't know what your availability is like. If you got some stories, you bring a couple jokes. There's no mandate that says you have to do the entire 5 to 8 minutes. And so we've seen some people. There's a guy that plays in a local band around here that like, he's been awesome. His name escapes me right now, but like when you have the timing, you have the timing.
Right.
When you've got it up there, you have it.
Well, that was like I did a keynote maybe a month ago. I got asked to do a keynote, and I felt good about it. And the crowd, like people I knew in the crowd, were like, "Yeah, that was really good," and he told me it was great. But then I watched the video back. I had someone here film it, and I was like, "Oh my God, that was terrible." You know what I mean?
Sure.
The way I talked, I said a lot. You know what I mean? And it was just like, I just didn't give those pauses for stuff I was saying to soak in, and I tried to be too scripted with my talk. So then I gave one 2 weeks ago, and I was talking to someone here was driving me up there, so because I was just like doing random work on my phone or whatever, and he was like, "So what you practice this last night or whatever?" I was like, "No." I was like, I decided to go into this one and not rehearse it at all. He was like, "Really?" And this was like a much bigger event. And I was like, "Yeah, that last one I just tried to be too scripted." And I was like, I have my talking points that I'm gonna hit, and it was just like I just basically made like a little PowerPoint. It just had single sentences on it that I would initiate the thought, and then I would just go on a tangent about that thought. And I even hated having the PowerPoint, but I just opened it up. I'm like, I hate PowerPoints, but my memory's terrible, so we're going to do this as an outline to keep me on track, because I want to hit all these points for you guys, and I don't want to forget anything. Sure. So I confronted it up front, you know what I mean?
That's huge.
And it went great. It was awesome. And I had people come up. We had people reach out, like looking for help from us from it, and all this. I was like, man, that was awesome.
I think that takes the pressure off of everybody. Yeah. They used to say to us in car sales for the first 2 years, just tell everybody that you encounter right up front that you're new, because then they'll be like, "Oh, okay, cool." Right. Because you are new, you're gonna screw up something, but when you do, they're gonna give you that mercy there. If you tell people up front, "My memory sucks. I've done it 100 times. I should be wearing glasses. So when I have this thing and this font is so small, and I have it on this stool over here, I actually can't read that."
Right.
And so I can recognize what some of these jokes are, and I try to keep them, as short as I can. But then, I do have lines where it's just a whole bunch of stuff like this, and then I got to try to do that there. But I had a bigger name comedian. He's got 30 years in the game, and he told me that he liked how I started off saying that, or how I addressed that. He was like, "That was so smart of you to acknowledge that you need glasses, that you're not wearing them, because then if you do pick up your notes and you go like that, oh, what was I saying? Oh, the crowd's laughing again.
Right.
You get a peek at your notes. The party's still kind of vibing."
Yeah.
And like when
he
was going,
it's like B Rabbit, man. He just addresses all of his flaws, and can't freestyle against me if I put it all out there.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I tell you, I'm not a big I got respect for a lot of different performers, and I look at the way that people do things in a different way, just because you can learn from it. I learn lessons all the time from comedians and non-comedians. Paul Stanley from Kiss has a great audio book where he talks about like the inspiration for wanting to be in a band, the conditions in his early life that led him to say, well, I know that I don't want a life as an accountant.
Mm-hmm.
I can't drive a bus. I've got this thing. I got to figure out how to make it work, and how it's a lot of trial and error, and then just like going out and doing it. And he's like, did I have people telling me that we look stupid with this face paint and like the leather and the studs and all the fire and stuff? Yeah, of course. He said, but if you look at it, he said every band they may not have been inspired by Kiss. He said, but if you go and see a band right now, every band has elements of Kiss DNA in their performance.
Yeah.
He said anybody that's got risers,
gimmicks, right?
Yeah, you got a drum that's going up on the risers. Nobody was doing that before. Fire.
Dead Mouse, the DJ.
Yeah.
Freaking mask on, and Marshmallow.
Right.
They all have their little random things.
Right.
Set yourself apart.
Exactly. So I think that, I see the work that you guys are doing constantly, and like, I don't know who else does anything like this. And that's the thing. They may be out there.
Right.
But if I have to come to you, like how much, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That was a big thing in sales, is how much does it cost to make that phone ring? And then once it does, what happens once the phone rings? And like if you can get people, because they're scrolling or whatever, and they keep seeing Ootbox Media or like maybe I didn't click on something, but a video just starts rolling.
Yeah.
Let me stop and see
Every
this.
piece of content connects to
everything. Works. So.
Well, man, it's been great having you on.
Been,
you got anything coming up? Any shows scheduled or open mics you're going to go to? People come out and check you out.
Every second and fourth Wednesday, you got a good chance of finding me down at Anvil and Forge.
I got to come out and check that out.
Yeah. So they'll have one tomorrow. That'd be a good one. We gather at like 6:30.
What time does it start?
At 7.
7?
Starts at 7,
okay.
And it's over at 9 o'clock. They got a hard out at 9. So some places you go to and it's like, I don't want to be here till midnight, if we don't have to, So they go in, they divide up the time, and that's that. Once a month at Buzz Bomb, they've got one.
This will post Tuesday.
Oh, cool.
So tomorrow will be out, but what would be after that? That would be the beginning of May. You'd be getting into the beginning of May.
Beginning of May, my first gig is going to be down at Platypus in St. Louis.
Okay.
For a show called Double Dare Comedy. It's hosted by a great
Double Dare.
Yeah. So I'll be doing a set down there, and then
get down there, check out some of those places down there, and the little clubs down there. That'd be fun.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then we're in the works to get, everybody is booking up right now. So I'm sure I'll add some more dates. So I'm Richard B. Comedy on Twitter and on Instagram. So if anybody's listening, go ahead and give me a follow
Richard
on
B.
there.
Comedy.
Yep.
We'll tag you. Thanks for coming on, man.
Thank you for having me. Thank you so much.
Oh, man,
Thank you.
Of course. Anytime.